Great. Well, welcome along, everyone. Highlight of the week for a number of us. Gives us a chance to roll through the program, particularly if we've bumped into someone along the week and they want to do something about their health. It's a great opportunity. It's why we run it every week, so that people can come along and take a look. So if you've popped in here for the first time, particularly welcome to you, whether it's your brother, your sister, or a friend. We've got some fabulous news. The program's been sensational over, more than 20 years now for a lot of us. So it's totally a good news program. If you're someone that's popping back in for a refresher, because this runs every week, but it's obviously, there's no roll calls. Each one of us come and go as we please. So if it's been a while, welcome back. So without further ado, let's get at it. You'll see that we run this every week. And it's a conversation rather than just sending out the information per se. We found that this gives a perspective of different people and talking from how they've actually used the program. So it gives you a more complete picture of what you're doing. So tonight it's going to be our brother and sister act. So we're going to do this. My name's Tony Henderson, and this is my sister, Belinda Walker. So I'm actually the oldest of the family, and she's the youngest of five. And there's a 16-year age gap in here. So we've got I know that looks like there's no age gap, but you know what I'm saying. Here we go. But we're going to have the pleasure of doing this. We've both used the program for a long time, definitely more than 10, 15, for myself, more than 20 years. Not only has it been phenomenal within our immediate family, extended family, but it's gone on out to the community. And that's what Belinda and I want to share with you. We'll show you the basics of the program, which happens every week. So don't worry if you miss something, because for three reasons. Number one, it's all on an app, so it's standardized. Number two, we do this each week, so you can come back. And number three, you'll see the way that we do this, we buddy up. So there's always someone, who's been down the pathway that can fill in any gaps. So it should be a very relaxing night of just mainly getting connected, because our message is, if we can do this, you can too. It's just, of course, it's up to you, obviously. Is this something that you want? Is it going to be valuable for you? Okay, so with that in mind, Bill, why don't you just quickly give a little bit about your background? We've kind of said that you're 16 years younger. I'm 66, so that gives the show away. Pick it up from there, just a little bit about your background. You live in Kinloch, and take it from there.
Cool. Hey, thanks, Tony, and greetings, everybody. It's always exciting to be able to share this, and thanks, Tony, for the trust and faith in doing that. So, guys, my background was in a corporate background initially. A number of years ago, and then moving into family time, we decided, Darren and I, we were in London at the time, and fast forward, we came back to New Zealand 8 years ago with three kids, the youngest of which now is almost 9. She was 4 months old actually when we came back, so pretty exciting. And my sort of journey, I guess, in the health world really began back around 2008. And I had to delve heavily into the biomedical world. Thankfully, I'd connected into Tony and Mary, so actually into the world of autism. Our eldest son, he was really very, very sensitive, highly strung, and reached that threshold of autism. But thankfully, with some guidance, some interventions, some health things that are very similar to what we talk about tonight, we were able to help him lose that diagnosis along the way, and that just tipped my interest in this. And fast forward, you'll see the stories that Tony shares. As I watched him do this as part of the team, I could see that there was some benefit to it, did it myself. And then you'll see as we share through this, how the stories kind of unfold from there.
Beautiful. Well, let's get at it, and we're gonna chop and change a little bit with both of us. So health isn't just a program; it's a way of life, and hopefully you'll get that message as we go through. We call this optimal cellular health. Bill, what does that mean to you with the terminology optimal cellular health as opposed to just weight loss?
Tony, I think this is one of the key differences to what we do here, because I've always believed, when the first time I saw this, if you'll get your cells right, which is where this focuses on getting, the energy in the cell and the cell membrane right as we go into it, then you've got healthy organs and a healthy body. Whatever that is, that's optimal health for you. So if we start at the cell, what your optimal health is what we'll get, not just weight loss.
Superb. Let's talk about where everything's at. And sorry to be a little bit negative. This is the Department of Statistics in Australia. But, there is just a reality picture that we start off with. And this is the general health in society. Because so often people say, well, how's your health? How's your diet? How's your lifestyle? And, you wouldn't be unusual. Oh, look, not bad, but better than most. But if we look at the averages of where the modern lifestyle's going, the numbers aren't really that cool, are they? And if you have a look at the second line there, you'll see that nearly half the people, 46.6, have got some sort of chronic condition, meaning on medication. And those things are just not funny because they just get progressively worse. It's not like having a cut and an infection where you take an antibiotic and then you're off it. You're on the drip for life. And things progressively get worse. At the very least, you're drained of energy most of the time. You got this, why am I dragging my sorry butt around feeling? From there, it gets progressively worse just in terms of muscle loss and just incapacitated. So chronic conditions are not something to take lightly. And if at all possible to head them off, it absolutely means that we've got a quality of life that I just cannot imagine that everyone who understood the choice would not want. Unfortunately, we've just got a lot of people that, hey, they get diagnosed as part of their lifestyle. The doctors say, listen, lose some weight, make some adjustments, but that just doesn't work statistically, as we can see. So then people end up on the medication, and then there's almost like a resignation. Oh, well, I've had a pretty good run. This is the way we're going. We really have some much better news than that synopsis. Now, another couple of things, if you look down, a bit of causal. Look at this number 3 and number 4. That is really, really interesting, isn't it? Who amongst us doesn't know that we should eat our veggies? I mean, gosh, it's there. Can't hardly pick up a woman's magazine that doesn't have something about, 5 different color groups, blah, blah, blah. It's not a case that we don't know. It's just a case that this is just not getting done, right? Statistically, we can show you something that kind of, look, obviously, apart from a reminder of the obvious, eat your vegetables, but there's something to fill the gaps in for those times that when we are statistics rather than perfect humans. The last one I'll go down to is very interesting too, is this whole thing about 49.4% of people describe their day as mostly not moving. This is, again, easier said than done. We all know we should be moving. The 10,000 steps is pretty much like a, what do you call it now, a cliche. But the reality is, if you're not deliberate, if you're not part of an environment or a group, you'd be probably doing about 2,500 to 3,500 steps if you're just going to work and coming home. Both of us have come off a farm or on a farming background. It's interesting when you go down to the south there, the 100 kg club is alive and well. It's one thing to laugh about it, go to the pub and throw your belly on the bar, but all of that stuff, all of those jokes are only leading to line number 2, right? And it's interesting, even when you look on farming, how often it's like not that much movement. You're going from the quad bike to the ute to the tractor. And so part of what we're doing here is an awareness and just to incorporate these things into lifestyle. So there's the statistics. We have got much better news than those statistics. Bill, team, another little cliche, together everyone achieves more. But look, this is something that I think is subtle. Not you think, listen, just tell me the program, tell me what I got to do, let's get on with it. There's a subtle element here that there's a lot of things in life that if you do it in a good environment, things can go better. And I'm sure if you're thinking about something, whether it's a good teacher you had, a good classroom, maybe it was a good sports team. My background was 5 or 6 years in the shearing industry, shore sheep in different places around the world. There's absolutely, that is just ask any shearer, you could go and shear sheep by yourself, just you with a whole shed full of sheep. And that is a whole different motivational animal to shearing in a gang of even 2 people. But, in a gang of 3 or 4 people, again, you're still putting out the effort, the same sort of skill, but man, oh man, there's a flow that goes when you're part of a team. So the motivation is important. Now, that is extremely important about getting results in health too, as we see it over and over. Just had it from a good friend that I knew from basketball days, had done a keto program, lost some weight, but rebounded. And, we ran across each other and we're just talking, how's life, blah, blah, catching up. And then he just kind of built up this kind of guilt thing because, he knows what we do and, can see that we're in good shape. He goes, oh, and he starts looking like, oh, yeah. And he kind of does a whole guilt thing. I know what I got to do. And I just, obviously you can't say anything, but in an environment like this, we can. And the reality is that if he knew what he was doing, then the rebound wouldn't be severe. And it's not about knowledge so much. Sometimes it can just be about being around a group. And so that makes a difference. The other thing about being together in a team is a couple of other subtle things. Number one is just this trust and confidence. And, Belinda talked about, like, she's a younger sister. We got onto this program working with a team. And so that as she saw what we were doing, because it's not just a program on the internet, or it's not just, some corporate program that may be great, they might have good results, but this is where you've got people that know people that know people, and that's what's called a network. Now that trust is important, not just for saying, all right, I'll give it a go, but it's about, listen, when you look at what other people have done and the results are real and the people are like, you are able to find that next little place that goes further. So that trust thing here really helps a lot. And perhaps if you've just walked in tonight and you don't really know someone very well, it might take you coming back a few times to get it, but we know that you can get it. The second thing is this concept of habits. Ultimately, a good lifestyle program is a habit building program. It's not just a case of knowledge. And we've just did something very interesting as a group of people. We were talking about this book. I don't know if you've ever seen How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an old time classic, right? In terms of just people skills and relationships. And so, we had a group of us saying, listen, let's go put it together and we could all read a couple of chapters at a time. Now, many of us have read this book and we know the stuff. We did chapter 1 and chapter 2. Chapter 1 is don't criticize, condemn, or complain, because when you criticize, you put people's back up, and therefore, even if you've got any knowledge, they're not going to receive it. So if you're trying to deal with people, criticism probably kills any skills or knowledge you've got. Second one was that give genuine praise. If you give genuine praise for what people are doing, they're more likely to be open then to whatever you're talking about. Now, tell me that you haven't heard that 1,000 times in life. Haven't we all heard of that? It's not that we don't know that, but you know what? It was so interesting, and we've actually got it on one of our Facebook groups, our CSN Facebook group. If it's interesting, you can go and have a look and just look at when different people were giving their perspective of how they'd used and done those things. It was amazing how things open up in all of our minds of, yeah, you know what, I know that, but I'm not actually doing it. Now I'm coming back to my friend again that I met in the mall. Yes, he's lost some weight and he knows if he could find that place, but just sitting there in that guilt cycle doesn't get it done. Whereas if you've got an environment of good quality people, it's amazing how bouncing off people that creativity can come. Now, Bill, we were just talking about, I call Belinda Bill, by the way. So we were just talking about something very interesting. Like my grandmother has been, or our grandmother's been dead, I think almost 20 years now. But before, she passed away, she connected with a guy called Charlie, who was a neighbor on the farm there. And you've just been, now Charlie's like 82, I believe 83 now. And you've just been working with Charlie on this health program, all these 20 years later. Do you want to just talk about how this whole concept of the team keeps spilling on and spilling on?
Oh, Tony, it's such a cool thing. And also the key is that environment, because what switched Charlie on was that he came along to the Christchurch seminar at the end of April.
Right.
And his mind got open because he's around a team of people. He's thinking about different things. He's reconnected with me. He's reconnected with Rolling Cherry, you and Mary. He loves being around that environment, and his brain started kind of opening up. He's starting to feel, he's actually a guy that's never really had a big trouble with weight, but he's starting to feel very tight in the chest. The belly's got a bit bigger. He's just generally spiraling. And he jumped on and walked through a HealthPointe cycle with us. It was really exciting.
And posted fabulous results.
Absolutely. Do you want me to show you a couple of photos?
Well, why not you jump? Well, yeah, jump in now because we're gonna go back and forth. So you just can you just screen share now, or have I got to give you permission? Can you jump in?
Let's try this. How's that?
No, I'm still seeing my one. What are you seeing on your end?
Hang on. Let's see what you got.
Something's changing now.
All right. So have you got Eddie and Han there?
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Just
So
go
should
kind of run through and some of the examples, if you would.
Well, why don't you start with Eddie and Han and then I'll switch through the other ones.
Sure. Well, look, guys, just show you how this has been we call it a viral, this influence of what's going on, because as you work with this program tonight, what we've found is so interesting is it spills out to others around us almost just by osmosis, right? I don't know if you used to read Superman comics where he had kryptonite. There's almost a positive kryptonite that goes on here. And that's why we like having this conversation every week, because it is actually getting results done person by person. It's not making a huge big noise in some big government program that's on TV, but person by person is getting empowered to get results, and then that passes on to a sister or a dad or a friend of a friend. I don't know if there was an old story about someone walking along the beach and there's crabs washed up everywhere. And there's some old guy walking down, picking up a crab and throwing it in. And someone come down and said, "What are you doing, you fool? There's just crabs everywhere. You can't make a difference." And he picked up one crab and threw it in. He said, "Well, probably to that one I made a difference." And that's what we're doing. Now, it's one of those things where, one story might affect you, but it may not affect me, but it might affect me, but it may not affect you. Well, here was a story that really impacted a lot of us. My wife and I were amongst that, and that was Eddie and Han Cham here in Auckland. And it was back in 2001 when this program was coming into New Zealand. They were very early adapters, and they picked it up. One of the reasons was that they were very motivated. Eddie already had high numbers. Look at that cholesterol. The blood pressure was high. The blood sugar is not shown there, but it was up at 14.5. So, and he was already on medication, working with the doctor, and that was his DNA. That was his family background. On his mother's side, 9 brothers and sisters died of diabetes. So they were motivated. Eddie was an engineer. Han was a school teacher, both very bright, driven people with a big need, right? So when this program came, a lot of us were going, okay, that's interesting. And how you kind of try things and that'll be interesting. But as someone said, well, interesting, Wild Kingdom's interesting, but this was different. This was, for them, it was like, if that could work, it's a game changer. Not interesting, game changing. And so luckily they got into this big time and they followed it to the letter of the law. And the results were nothing short of staggering, as you can see the picture there alone. But beyond that, it was working with their doctor, able to get the results and wean off the medication. Now, for those of us that knew Eddie and Han personally, we were able then to get an insight and some trust into something that most people from the outside could just go, well, I don't know if it's as good as that. Even a lot of doctors back in 2001, honestly, they were like, oh, no, listen, nah. Once you've got that, I'm afraid you're stuffed. Yeah, look, well, where do you go with that? Well, when it's in front of your eyes. So, from that, a number of us went out and did the program, and I did the program myself and took off 8 kilos. Nothing dramatic. Just when I saw Eddie and Han, I thought, you know what, I've got to do that myself. And I was driven to do it because I just want to see if it works, because if it works, you could see the potential for people in the community, because this trend that we're in the middle of right now was even being spoken back 20 years ago. And so that's 20 years ago, and we've been able to live with this program. Sometimes one of the things I like about the program, you're changing the photos, are you, Bill? It's your program.
Yep.
So, as you can see, every now and then, you take a trip, this program works with life. So, we like to travel a lot. We go away sometimes 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And then we just, what the heck, man, I'm turning the switch off and boom. And sometimes, you can put on 4, 5, 6 kilos, but look how fast you can change it when you come back. So it's truly something you can live with. But if you just flip it over here, Bill, and I'll just talk about Dad, then pass it over to you. This is where things really changed in terms of like some sort of sense of mission, some sort of sense of like, hey guys, you got to hear about this. And that again, why if you hear that tone that's in our voice here tonight of like, genuinely we're fired up that you're here, because having done that 3 years later, right? So when we did all of this, we had no idea that this was going to happen. 3 years later, Dad rocks back from the doctor. Boom, he's got the pills. He's part of that 46.4 or 46.6. He's diabetic. Well, Dad left school at 13, sheep farmer from the south of New Zealand. If you're from another country, let me just fill you in, that's typically not the most open to change type of demographic that you would go for. But because it's family, he goes, all right, I'll give it a go. And by this stage, my brother had done something with the program, Belinda had. So it's like 3 against 1. And Dad could spin off that. And here's the good news. Within 6 weeks, the doctor said, listen, you don't need that medication. So he's been able to get to 93 without having to take the medication. He had to take some after 93 because he just wasn't quite as diligent as he should be. But all of those years, it could have been a lot better if he followed the program. But, we're so grateful that he's been able to have that life. Now, Bill, can you just spin off from there how this little viral has spread on out through other members of the family and then gone out to other people that in the community?
Absolutely. And hey, Tony, I actually remember being with Dad the first meal he took on that HealthPointe cycle, and it was a long way from perfect. It was amazing, but he kept going with the basic formulas that will come through when we go like the basic building blocks of this. And, now he's coming back to those basic building blocks, and we're really seeing his health come along in the last 6 months amazingly.
It was pretty hard to get him off toast and honey. In fact, I don't think he ever gave up toast and honey completely, right?
Yeah, he's a pretty convicted protein powder guy in the morning now, right? For the last however many years. But that was deeply ingrained, that's for sure. Hey, so sitting back, I'd been watching you guys. I'd done this myself. We lived for 15 years in London, so 2000 to like 2015. I came back to New Zealand, and here we are last year, start of this year, and like you just creep a few kilos over 50. These happen for women. And I had coached a few people through, and my next door neighbor had seen me posting a couple of things. I'd posted a little bit about a guy, Josh, who I'd done a lot of work with to lose 60, 70 kilos with. I'd posted some pieces on my eldest son, Jed, you'll see in a minute, which was just bringing 8 kilos into line as a young guy. That was pretty cool. And so this was just me fronting up, because you kind of, to have I think you call it the moral authority, Tony, doing it yourself, but more importantly, as a team, I was doing this to work with my friend Nikki. She was my neighbor. She'd watched these things. She'd been watching for a while. Nikki was 51. And you know what? For Nikki, she'd watched this story of my son, Jed, right? So Jed had been watching you. He's been listening to me for years. He's finally like, man, we had some health challenges. Epilepsy last couple of 18 months, a broken leg that was pretty complicated. And over the year he gained 12 kilos. Some of that's just growing as a young man, but when he kind of hit 94, he's like, okay, mum, I give it, let's have a go. And honestly, Tony, it was amazing. He did this more strictly than I've ever seen anybody do it. He weighed the food each day on little scales. He's like in there on the scales every morning. He's grown up living on protein snacks and protein bars. That was, the essence of what we did when we had to start with him all those years ago to help him lose his diagnosis. So he did his HealthPointe round, shared his 7 kilos. We shared the story. A few people go, wow, that's pretty interesting. And one of them was Nikki. Along the way, Leroy, who's our second oldest, my second oldest son, he's 14. He's like watching away. Leroy, he's getting a lot of opportunities in basketball refereeing, and he's carrying a little extra weight. So he's like, okay, I'm going to give a couple of rounds a go. Now, Leroy's 14. He cheats his face off on these things, but he still managed to lose 8 kilos. So that's pretty cool. And he's still kind of looking at it, working on it. But Nikki, she's the neighbor, and she's watching this going on, and the team is building out. So here's Nikki. She's got a goal because she wants to go to her niece's 21st birthday party in Sydney in June. So she works at it, and we go walking every morning together, every weekday morning at 6 o'clock. we're out the door, round at her place, and both of us hate mornings, absolutely hate mornings. Agree, there's not a chance. We hadn't been doing this together, and we could have been doing this through the phone together. We just happened to be neighbours, so we're walking together, but we're committed together. And that's that team part that makes all the difference. And then starting to link in and change your thinking too. So key thing for Nikki, she lost 17 kilos, which for sure is amazing. We've got a muscle multiplier story in there because that's what she used instead of the protein powder in this particular journey. And those first 10 kilos, she went straight through without a plateau, which I've never had anyone, particularly in this age profile, do that. But very much the reduced brain fog, the increased energy. I put improved resilience in there because you know what? In the middle of all that, Nikki lost her job. And like incredible, she said, you know, before we started, that would have had me on the couch laid out. But she'd already started changing her thinking, getting control of her program with this and losing the weight and getting healthier. So that's that cellular level health. And now she's got a great new job, really enjoying it. And she gets lots of steps every day. So pretty cool. On top of that, I just got to add for Nikki's story. She's just come back from that 21st birthday, 10 days, the wine tours the lot, only put on 0.8 kilos, took the muscle multiplier away with her. Something to think about.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We love those. But here's
Charlie.
Started the story. So everybody taking you back. So this is back. Charlie, I think he's around 77. Charlie will correct us later. But he's registered by a grandmother in like the late 80s, right? He's been around these environments. He keeps on to stay in connection. Then he gets this light bulb moment at the seminar in Christchurch. We connect. I'm like, I can coach you, Charlie. Let's just connect. 1st of May to 17th of June. Look at that. Lost 8 kilos. It looks like more to my eyes. But wow, the experiment he did with the muscle multiplier, but check out the blood pressure. I am so excited. Not just the weight loss. Weight loss is like a bonus. But the key is that cellular health. Get amongst the team. Get those blood pressure stuff down. And with it comes all the other stuff. But just so anybody, you know, that have been following, he was doing 21,000 steps a day. Check it out. You know, like that's huge. And we talk about 10,000 steps. He's smashing it. And so he did this half a scoop and 400 mils of water, does the steps, no muscle tiredness. Does it with only water. Not only did he need extra water, he felt dehydrated and his muscles were tired. So then he thought he'd check it out with excess of water. He's got the energy, but the leg muscles are getting tired. So actually, I didn't put day 4. Day 4, he went back to the muscle multiplier, no more tired legs.
Wow. Wow.
So,
wow. I'm
just having
a look to see if Charlie's actually dropped in with us here today. No, I don't see Charlie, so it's a shame. All right, we'll carry on.
I tell you, I've got a few slides in here. Do you want to, talk through Brian's story there, Tone?
No, you just skip through and we'll get on because we've had about half an hour. So, we'll just maybe run through and just maybe run through these 6 key advantages, if you would, of the program, because you're great at summarizing things.
Awesome, guys. Well, look, it's pretty fast. Anybody you share those kind of results, you see that actually comes off very fast. It's safe, comes from clinics, lots of patients, lots of case studies. You can jump on our HealthPointe Facebook group. You get lots of examples in there. It's one of the coolest places to go and swim and find out different information. It's step by step. Start with the app. It just gives you all the info you need. It's such a key place to put your records. It's got all the, it's got some audios in there, and it's about like connecting with the team, the trainer, whoever you're with. We're not talking gyms, we're talking movement. I've just gone back to do another cycle with Nikki, and we've just done our 3 protein days in a row. And I've got to say, this time of year, that 3rd protein day is really hard when there's roast potatoes on offer the night before. But because we're in a team together, we smashed out our 3 protein days, and I think I've dropped like 2.6 kilos. So I'm pretty happy with that. No gym, just walking and the real food.
Bill, can I just jump in there on how simple this is? I just had an old friend last week hit me up for way back from sharing days, set up his own company, blah, 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 retired, and then, didn't like it. So he set up another one. And he'd been watching on our Facebook group just a few of these kind of conversations. And I didn't even know he was watching, to be honest. But then he just hit me up and said, hey, listen, I'm going overseas at the end of July. He told me the story. Look, bottom line, I've put on weight, and can you help me? So absolutely. And so with that, I just set him up. Said, listen, here's the app. Download the app. Send him the information. You'll need a little code, so we got him the code for that. That code, by the way, is only $90 New Zealand. It's not like you're paying $900 or any of this extra. It's all affordable. And then the basic products that he needed, I just let him, in his case, we started him off with the muscle multiplier, the omega-3, a probiotic, because he's over 65 and has the odd wine. It's always good to get your stomach going. So we kind of added that over in there. And then the double X, which we'll talk about here. So, and then just gave him the concept, just, go to amway.co.nz and just, you'll see their login as a customer, and then gave him my number so he could admit. So, just touched base with him last night. Hey, how are you getting on? And so already he's got the app downloaded, all the product. He's already put the order in. The products have all arrived, and it's just easily all set up and done. So it's a simple step-by-step process, as an example.
Absolutely, very cool. And it's a complete program. When we talk about set points, these are some of the differences and supplements and the team that you see with HealthPointe, because there are gaps in our diet. I remember years ago on the farm, one year we had a whole bunch of cows die because we had all the calves, is what I remember as having the calves and being able to feed them as a kid. But it came from a deficiency in selenium. That's how serious it is. You see the salt blocks these days. And the same thing, if it's not in the soil, it can't be in our diet, even if you had a great diet, which, the slides a few slides ago show us that maybe 6% of us do. So if 6% of us are maybe eating those, fruits and vegetables, what have they got in them? And muscle preservation. This is the hottest thing right now. What you saw with that example of Charlie using the muscle multiplier, we could go on for a long time, but time is of the essence. The key thing here, like Tony talked about, though, it's really easy to duplicate with a friend, right? That's easy to share. And I just love that fundamentally you can really help people with this. This is not just like shed a couple of kilos. This is like, I know if you do this program that you're going to fix stuff you may not even know you've got, because it works at that cell level, and it's ongoing. So like I say, we've had a pretty crazy last month. A couple of kids are heavily involved in the local show of Greece, all sorts of hours, times of everything. We've all eaten rubbish because, it's okay to do that occasionally. Because it's ongoing, I can jump back on this program with Nikki and pull that back into line before it gets out of hand.
And the other part about ongoing I like, Bill, is as new information comes in, as long as you're part of the community, when it comes in, you absorb it. Like, for example, the muscle multiplier, the essential amino acid, the upgrade from where protein was, because we're all around this environment, we all were kind of early adapters in that. Whereas, out in the community, there's just a lot of people. If you said, listen, are you using protein, or have you moved on to essential amino acid blend? 9 out of 10 people would look at you with a blank look in their face.
100%, Tony. The new stuff is so exciting. And here, you and I, we've worked with this for 20 years, and I'm sure everybody can pick up how excited we are about, that next evolution with amino acids.
Beautiful. Okay, so with the basics there's a few basics, and your doctor hits you with these, right? If you walk in, he'll say, listen, you've got to get that weight right. There's a BMI range that they'll normally go, get under that 25 number. And then they'll always take your bloods there of the basics, right? Your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your inflammation. You saw the examples here with Charlie. So this program, first and foremost, it's about giving you a really fast, safe, effective shot at getting what the doctor is telling you to do. Great. Well, we talked about the cellular health, and Belinda was talking about there's 3 things that we get, just to give you a look. We won't go in details here tonight, but it's about that cell membrane. It's about getting that mitochondria, that's that energy production, and it's filling those gaps in. So there's our 3 simple things. The cell membrane, really, that's yet another reason why quality omega-3 is the first building block that I think there is with all nutrition. The government, whichever country you're listening to, just Google right now, what is your government health recommendation for omega-3 omega-6 ratio? You'll find it's either 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 all around the world. Breast milk that a baby drinks is 1-to-1. So this is a very first fundamental, because on a modern diet, more often than not, those ratios are up around 20-to-1. Now, how does that happen? Well, if you think about what is omega-3 and what is omega-6, they're your 2 main fats, and that cell membrane is going to be 75% fat. So even if you cut back on fat, it's going to be made up of what fat you're eating. So now the conversation is what kind of fat. And so if you think about what sort of things does omega-3 come from and what does omega-6, little rhyme, omega-3 primarily things from the sea, omega-6 growing on sticks, wheat, rye, etc. Now, if you start to think about, what do you have for breakfast? Often it's a piece of toast or cereal. Morning tea, how often that's a muffin, a croissant. Lunchtime or evening meals, how often is it a sandwich or a toasted sandwich or fried rice or spaghetti bolognese or a pizza, mac and cheese? It's not that these meals are bad. I mean, how could you run a school camp trip without some of those meals? It's just that day after day after day after day, those meals become the default program. And next thing you know, you've got this 20-to-1+ ratio. Some of them are 60, 70, 80-to-1. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means quite a few things, but the most basic thing that you can get in your head here is that cell membrane is compromised, meaning it's now got a higher concentration of omega-6, so things don't go in and out so well. And the basic functioning of that cell is that glucose, whether we're eating a lolly or a piece of broccoli, has got to get through that membrane. And so if it's compromised, it's going to, imagine, how does that get through? Well, if it can't get through, some glucose is going to spill over. So an early warning sign is doctor says that blood sugar levels are going up because there's sugar running in the blood. The other one would be, hey, your blood pressure is starting to rise. Why? Well, because the pancreas, to get that piece of glucose through that membrane, the pancreas has got to release insulin. And that's like a pumping mechanism to pump it through. Well, if that resistance is there, can you feel there's pressure? The next thing that happens if you deny that is that ultimately you burn the pancreas out of insulin. And we've only got a limited capacity. It's like a woman only releases so many eggs in her life. Then our capacity to produce insulin is limited. So when this cell is compromised, we're really affecting very fundamental things. So I hope that's given you a quick 1-minute picture, because it's a very dramatic thing leading to why do you want to make sure that you are thinking about omega-6, omega-3, and thinking about, look, what sort of things are you eating? And then you think, okay, well, I don't like fish. Myself, I'm not a particularly big fish eater. Well, what does that mean? You're just going to eat everything else with omega-6. Well, well, there's another rate. You can look at adding more omega-3 through supplementation, but you want to work what you do to get that ratio right. The second thing is to get that mitochondria. When you talk about energy levels, almost everyone here reports energy, and that's getting a protein carbo ratio right. This is all spelled out in our app, so we won't go there. And when you talk about gaps in the diet, as the statistics showed, what we do to address that, number one, we have the diet plan that is incorporating more vegetables and fruits in the diet. But be that as it may, whether it's cost, whether it's convenience, whether it's taste, there's going to be, or just habits, or just slackness. There's going to be times that, just because we decide to do this program, we don't go from who we are to polyperfect. And so as a backup, our multivitamin, multi-mineral incorporates 22 different fruits and veggies. So it fills in the gap as we go. So when we talk about that little picture, if you just go back there for one moment, please build to that picture. When we say cellular, that's really where we're going. And that's why we talk about quality omega-3. It's why we talk about the XX supplement, which has not just vitamins and minerals, but it fills that fruit and veggie gap. And why the actual meal program, as simple as it is, with a protein, a servings of fruit, a servings of veggie, and a lettuce, why combinations of that make up a great meal plan to work with. Bill, run through the 6 basics, if you would, and just give a summary.
Sorry, guys, had muted out there. Hey, thanks, Tony. I think you'd covered those pretty great. So, it's an adjustment of your carb-protein ratio. Tony talked about getting that energy back, getting the omega-3, omega-6 ratio in there so that your body can accept all this good nutrition you're going to give it, getting the water there so you're flushing it out, not confusing it with hunger, getting some movement, and that modifies depending on where your movement was at. But, 10,000 is a great goal. Start there. Filling those gaps. We'll talk about the XX. But there's difference here, is filling the gaps. It's our community, it's our association. I think you're kind of getting that message coming through, connecting with a coach on this. Lots of people say, yeah, I've lost weight on this or that or the next thing. There's lots of things you can lose weight with. But if you've got a coach and a partner, then, you've got an accountability, and that just makes such a difference. And that starts that process of changing the mindset. Because if you're going to keep the weight off, it is a mindset change you want to look at, and you need to get around the people for that. So blood sugars, we have a combination of these foods specifically, and you can look in the app for that, the exact ratios of all of them, because if you eat over a 1 to 2 hour period, you're going to get this lovely, each element of that releases its energy at a different time. Your protein is your last on there, as opposed to your massive carbohydrate spike, which gives you a rush of energy for a minute, and then you're heading for that couch, shortly after. So, that's that. Watch that one. That's the diabetic kind of flag up.
Bill, can you just go back to that? I want to jump in that, please. I know we're kind of pushing through on time, but just go back to that because, I know there's a lot of, but one more slide back, please. I know there's a lot of people out there that are baby boomers, but when I look back, even when I was in my 30s, I was starting to get this because I had such a sweet tooth. And, even though I was active, shearing sheep, traveling, active personality, I was one of those full on, or when you sit down, conk out and have a snooze. I don't know if you remember our dad, even. Dad would be famous for driving along and he'd start yawning and he'd start scratching himself and driving, and mum would be complaining about that. If you can relate to this, you've got a sugar problem. I don't know why it's just not more common knowledge that if you're feeling tired, the first thing that you check is the obvious: how's your petrol? I mean, if your mower won't go, the first thing is to check if there's any petrol in the whole process. And I know for myself, I just this was amazing that when you actually get your diet like this, and and when you get it, can you go to the next slide, please? When you don't, and you take too long to eat, and then you think I'm starving, so you go for the big, then you go boom, there's your spike, and now you come down. So if you relate to this whole thing about why am I always so tired, and I understand there's different reasons for tiredness. It could be stress, it could be kids, but I think before you start looking at dramatic examples, there would be a great chance of just learning how to eat and get in and the program shows you'll eat it this way. And after a while, when you stuff it up and kind of do more of one, you'll feel, oh, I see. And you'll feel yourself get tired. It's such a beautiful thing to be empowered with energy.
So guys, 3 meals a day. Eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. Sounds so simple, but it really makes a huge difference. And it's 3, we're talking proper food, real meals, protein snacks. It's okay, Tony, I want to take just a little bit of time on the protein snacks. We've got a range of things. What's a protein? Piece of cheese, a glass of milk, plain yogurt, meat, fish. There's lots of different ways you can have protein snacks. I've added on this 3-day protein round, muscle multiplier as a protein snack. It's been awesome. I tell you what, so good to have another thing to put in there along with their protein bars, because protein, as much as you can dress her up, can get a little boring after a while, and that just gives you another really interesting one to have, and it just gets you there before you are hungry and thirsty, I find.
Bill, it's a big point, because if you're going to have something that you can live with, something that you can actually make a lifestyle adjustment, that you can go from now to the end of your days on this planet, instead of just a diet program for a few weeks, it is actual practical things like what you've just mentioned that's going to make the difference. Great point.
Oh, and I've learned that through this last couple of cycles with Nikki, and watching her go straight into the muscle multiplier and taking that on holiday. It's the only thing she did. It wasn't the kind of holiday where they did thousands and thousands of steps. They moved, but it wasn't that kind of holiday. And it was definitely the muscle multiplier was that kind of key difference. So, food options on your protein day. You got to do these 3 protein days, guys. It's not great. It's really where you need a coach on day 3, let me tell you. But I do think, you just got to cut through to get that body into its ketosis, and it's getting to burn the fat. And look, you got protein bars, you've got eggs, you got some little eggy bacon muffins there. You got a lot of different ways you can do protein, and you got these, like, look at this, delicious, fried up little bits of probably beef or lamb or fish. protein doesn't have to be boring, but after 3 days, you are starting to fantasize about fruit and veg, let me tell you. So
And I think it's a good time to jump in here, Bill, with those that have done a keto-based diet before. There's many people that you run across, like my friend in the mall the other, that have done a keto, and they do it for a certain period of time. Just had a relative do something for 21 days and lost 10 kilos, and this person. But the truth is, yes, you can get focused for that period of time, but the rebound is severe in many cases. And you know, what's the point if you're going to turn around a few months later and you're back at square one? And so, you know, this program understands that, and it addresses that issue of how to use the keto base to get those results, but extend it towards something that you can actually live with for your whole life, like we've all been doing, as I say, some of us 20 years. Now, check out when you look at the food program, because it's super yummy if you get creative, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look at these delicious meals you have on here. And the same basic formula applies. I'm just going back here. Same basic formula applies to all of these salads. You know, you've got a couple of handfuls of lettuce, you've got a fruit, got a vegetable, and in the weight loss phase, you've got 100 grams of protein and all those different proteins. So it is, and I'll tell you what, today's been my first day on the salad after 3 days. Honestly, I could feel my cells vibrating, waiting for the salad to come in. I had to send a photo to Tony. It was so exciting. Anyway, hey, moving on. What does your basket look like? I mean, Tony, like, isn't that a standard basket there on your left?
Anytime you go shopping and you're sitting there in the supermarket with the big queues, you know, it's interesting when you just look around. And I would say at least 3 out of 5, and I'm being generous, it's probably more like 4 out of 5, but let's say 3 out of 5, you're going to see it's on the left there. You know, you're going to see bottles of fizzy drink that are, if not laden in sugar, they're certainly laden in sweeteners and blah, 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 blah. And you're going to see, you know, boxes of cereal and pre-cooked. There's just a lot of that pre-cooked stuff, which goes with the preservative, goes with the colors. But more than anything, it's pretty much all full of omega-6.
100%. And then you look at the basket on your right, and this is what we're talking about. You know, you've got your protein sources there, your lettuce, you pick your fruit that goes in it. And the key thing also is going back to that very basic, you can add whatever you want to it. It doesn't have all the other additives that are needed in those processed boxes. So there's a lot of health basics coming in here that's so much more than just weight loss.
And Bill, I think it's worth just flicking back to those, just the pictures of the food again, because when you just look at the shopping trolley there and you see a bit of lettuce and you see a tomato and you see this, you know, if a big thing, you may not be someone that's got much culinary creativity. A lot of us come in this way. And so one of the things here is to go on the Facebook group, you go into where it says images, and you can get all of this stuff. As basic as this sounds, just getting yourself 7 or 8 different tastes of salads in your go-to move, you're equipping yourself for life, because almost any time you can roll back, jump into the fridge, mix and match, and away to go. But if you haven't if you're not very creative and all you are is pretty much a cheese and cracker and your go-to moves to have a cheese toasty, or, you know, and that's where a lot of us go to, like have, you know, various variations of bread, you probably don't have the creativity of creating these salads when you come in. And, you know, it is a game changer in terms of something that works for you a long time.
Hey, so just conscious of time here, Tone. We've got, I think we've kind of come through the team approach part pretty thoroughly. Is there anything you want to cover there?
No, I think we're done. I think if you just go through there and just give people, you know, just go back there of like, what do you need to do to get started? You know, how like, you know, with Mark, the same thing. Hey, here's your app where you just run through it. You're beautiful at setting people up.
Oh, well, look, equipping and preparing. We've talked a lot about the connection, and then you're grabbing your friends and you need to get the things you need to get, you know, for getting going. So what are we talking about? I think everybody's got the message on the app. Honestly, it'll lead anybody through it. It's got all the details there. Super easy for a coach to get you a number, and you just download it and you've got the access key and you're away. And as Tony said, you know, the affordability part fundamentally, you got to get the omega-3 to get that cell membrane working and functioning, and you need the double X to give you the gap filler, and then the protein powder is just a fantastic way to give you an option for breakfast, just to fire up the mitochondria in your cells and get it going. So that's your basics. You could start there. But we have some really cool upgrades that does make this easier, and it depends what you are trying to achieve in your program. So protein bars, they're a fantastic option to put in your protein solution. If you love eggs, that's brilliant. But a boiled egg can be a little bit tricky to carry around in your handbag. So, these are just your fillers so that you never get caught out. That's the other thing, is the being prepared for options. Stash them in glove boxes, handbags, wherever you do go. And then if you ever get caught out, there's something that keeps you from getting starving, which is where it kills you. What else can you add to it? You got to get the bowels moving. You must have things flushing out. What goes in really must come out. Sometimes it needs a bit extra help. So our fiber is a really essential place to go. Or vitamin C is another very good place for helping flush the body. We've been talking as a next thing about liver, and there's some really cool things in the liver zone around protein or amino acids, milk thistle, and probiotics to get your gut right. So these are all your optional ones in here, guys. But I know.
Can I jump in again? I was listening to the BBC, and they have a lot of interesting, great programs. One was on health today, and the liver was the topic there. 38% of people globally, they were quoting there now, have a compromised fatty liver of some sort, and more than liver being created a problem from alcohol. Is liver problems being created from a bad diet? Not that alcohol is good, but the fact that diet problems. And the other thing is that they were talking about that livers are getting compromised younger and younger and younger, and they were just leading up to the point that one of the dire shortages that they're talking about. If the trends in health are carrying on the same way, they are going to have a shortage of liver transplants. In fact, that they're always in search of livers now for transplants, but with the exploding trend of people not adjusting these lifestyles, it's just another reminder that the liver is front and center of a good program, which this also addresses.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, Tony. So exciting. That's again another part of that, being part of the team, getting the leading research, getting ahead of what's happening. And also I can say, as a menopausal woman, the milk thistle probiotics with the amino acids are really, I found, quite a game changer. So I guess that probably is connected to the liver in some ways as well. But definitely when you're getting everything right down at that, back to that cellular level process again, we really got things rocking along. Water, we could go for a long time about water. It's essential for flushing it through, and there's many things in your water. I mean, I live next to Lake Taupo. It should be the most pristine, beautiful lake in the country, and it's pretty good. But you know what? It's a volcanic lake. It's got natural levels of arsenic in it. So you know what? You even got to clean the clean stuff. So clean water flushing through the body. So you know what? We've said prepare, read, discuss the app with your coach. Get your weight in those photos. Really important to get that baseline measurement, because it's amazing how those can quickly change, and you really want to see that visual difference. And come on back and drop in on these weekly webinars. You never know when you see a brother and sister going to team up and go, we're so excited about this thing, come and have a look. But every week there's a different Zoom. Tony and Mary lead this amazingly to be able to create different ways, access us to the latest thinking, discoveries, and the audio is a part of that, kind of keeping your brain changing and that mindset change for that healthy future, so you don't need the liver transplant that Tony's just talked about.
Well, I think on that note, we would call it quits. Guys, hope that you've enjoyed it tonight. If you've joined us for the first time, remember that whoever brought you along can get you equipped if you've missed anything. And even if it's your brother and he's just saying, hey, listen, I'm going to do this, come do it with me, your brother will be connected to someone else. So you don't need to worry about being lost in the weeds. But primarily, again, just to reiterate, the very first step is to download that app. You get the key and start reading the app. and then just ask whoever brought you along, what are the products that I need to get started? So out of that selection that we've got there, they'll guide you to the right ones so that, like my friend Mark, you can just get that done immediately. So within the next 4 or 5 days, you've got your products, you've had time to read your app, and then you're good to go. So we'll leave it at that, guys. Next week we're back. Don't even know who's going to be talking next week. We just know whoever it is, it's going to be absolutely amazing, because it always is. Cheers. Thanks, Bill. It was all brilliant.
Thanks, guys.